Unit 45, review 100 questions. A lender is placing a 400,000 loan. The borrower will not be charged an organization fee on the first $50,000 but will pay $4.20 for each thousand of loan amount over $50,000. The organization fee will be $1,470. A tenant vacates a property having done $1,250 worth of damages. The tenant also left an Xbox valued at $250 in the property. The tenant contacts the property manager within 10 days and demands the return of the Xbox and the $1,000 security deposit. The manager must return the Xbox but may keep the $1,000 security deposit. A buyer pays $175,000 for an office building with $25,000 as a down payment. Over 6 years, the buyer pays $12,000 on the mortgage, of which 50% is interest. Disregarding interest, what percentage of the purchase price has the buyer paid? Would be 18%. If an attorney refers clients to a real estate agent and in return receives referral fees, then attorney must be a licensed real estate agent. When a temporary broker's license is issued, the broker may not initiate new businesses. Which of the following statement is true? A. A buyer's agent may offer unlicensed buyer clients a premium, such as a big screen TV, if they purchase a home. A lease, in which the landlord pays the utilities, a property taxes, is most likely a gross lease, which is an exempt from a public report. A resale of a subdivided unimproved lot by a private party to another party. If a property for sale is located near a municipal airport, the listing agent must provide a disclosure of the location of the airport. Which article of Arizona's constitution created state trust land? Would be A. 10. The Arnke versus RKP reality case is important because it clearly shows that a license may be liable for false statements made in good faith. A buyer makes an offer on a property on which the seller has already accepted an offer. If the seller accepts this new offer, it should contain a contingency clause. In the Barnes versus Lopez case, A. Advertising the property as business zoned when only a portion of the property was business zoned was deemed to be a misrepresentation. All of the following are associated with a non-judicial foreclosure of a trust deed except A. Right of redemption. A purchase agreement uses a standard clause that states this contract cannot be alterated, amended, changed, modified, revised, or terminated without written specific consent of both the buyer and seller. To make a change to this purchase agreement, A. The buyer and seller can communicate the changes via email. A license would not be violating Arizona law in which situation? A. Preparing documents in a real estate transaction when the license represents only one party. A substance known to be hazardous because of its friable fibers is known as a asbestos. Which of the following bankruptcy chapters allow for liquidation of a debtor's assets? Would be Chapter 7. An active management area is an area in which a excessive overdraft and occurring a parcel of land that benefits from an easement is known as the dominant estate. After a trustee sale under a deed of trust, how long does a trustor have to redeem the property? 0 days. When a broker has earned a commission but the seller refuses to pay for no apparent reason, which of the following statements would be incorrect? The broker may place a commission lien on the property in order to postpone the property transfer. Who may legally manage a single office building for a fee? A. Natural person who is an employee of the property owner. Which of the following statements relating to a broker's temporary absence and appointment of a license during the absence is correct? The appointment of a salesperson in the company may not be for longer than 30 days. When a salesperson who has a written employment contract with his broker places a contract in escrow and then leaves the employment of the broker, what is the status of the salesperson's commission? A. The salesperson would receive the commission since he placed the contract in escrow and would be paid by the former broker. In the Lamborghini versus Albu case, the court held that A. The duty of disclosure of a material fact suspended the agent's duty of confidential. Which of the following is not community property? A. A gift of land made only to the husband. The main issue in the Development Corporation versus Pima Capital Management case was a failure to disclose the presence of polybutyl plumbing. The monthly income on one unit in a duplex is $325, and the other unit rents for $350. Rent is collected on the first of each month. The duplex sells and closes on September 23rd. What is the prorated income the buyer receives? It would be B. A piece of property sells for 125 an acre and the sales price is $185,000. What is the size of the property? It would be B. 1,480 acres. Long-term capital gain treatment applies if the property has been held more than B. 12 months. A two-story building measures 24 feet by 30 feet and has 8-foot ceilings. What is the square footage of the building? It would be B. 1,440. A property sells for $55,000 with a 6 commission paid to the broker. The salesperson gets paid based on a 2-3 ratio split with the salesperson receiving the higher portion of the ratio. The salesperson's share would be B. 1,980. A home sells for $405,000 but was listed for $435,000 and the buyers are getting a 90% loan. The sellers are paying a 6% commission and the buyers want the sellers to pay 2 discount points. The sellers are paying for a 55 recording fee, 1,735 in closing costs, and 253 for title insurance. The sellers originally purchased their home for $250,000 and their loan balance is $183,000. What are the sellers' proceeds from sales? Sale would be B. A listing agent and a seller have a dispute over a commission during the close of escrow and the seller refuses to pay. What action can the listing agent take? Would be take I mean B. Take civil action against the seller after closing. A clause that allows lender to take over collection of rent when a borrower is in default is a B. Assignment of rents clause. Which of the following protects the lender in the event for a foreclosure? Would be B. Mortgage insurance. Arizona brokers are required. Arizona brokers have liability for out-of-state salespersons if they enter into a cooperation agreement. When there is a discrepancy between the pre-printed words and written words in a purchase contract, which of the following statements is true? It would be B. The written word prevails. The ratio of net income available from a commercial property to service the mortgage payment is B. Debt coverage ratio. In which case would a real estate company not be able to continue business indefinitely? Would be B. Death of a designated broker who was the sole shareholder of the licensed corporation. An option contract allowing the opportunity to purchase or lease other properties at some future time is a B. Rolling option. If a salesperson enters into a buyer-broker agreement with a buyer, the agreement must be entered into the company transaction log. A monthly performance bonus may be paid to an on-site residential property manager. In advertising real estate, B. An inactive license who markets her own house for sale must include the words owner agent in any ad. If a man buys a property, closes escrow but dies before the deed is recorded, the property goes through probate. In the case Verma versus Sutora, the count decided that failure of the seller to give the buyer an affidavit of disclosure B. Allows the buyer to cancel the purchase prior to closing. A site plan includes all of the following except B. A building envelope. In order to obtain a prescriptive assessment, there must be B. Adverse use. Which of the following is required under the Real Estate Settlement and Procedures Act? Would be B. The borrower has the right to inspect the CFPB closing disclosure 3 business days before closing. If an offer is rejected but eventually results in a binding contract, the records must be kept for 5 years from closing or termination of the contract. Which of the following advertisement situations violates Arizona Commissioner's rules? A broker excludes the company name but includes the company phone number. An unlicensed officer of a real estate brokerage licensed as a corporation may manage company-owned real estate but may not receive extra compensation. In a purchase contract, a buyer has 45 days to conduct environmental research on a property. This is referred to as due diligence. B. The Hill versus Jones case would be B. Found that FSBO sellers are liable for failing to disclose defects. A loan provisions that makes different properties, real or personal, collateral for the same loan is a cross-collateralization clause. A broker G was paid a commission at the close of a sale of an apartment complex. Broker G demanded more money for drawing leads which were incidental for the sale. How much more can broker G receive? Would it be B? Nothing, because he can't charge for drawing leads in Arizona. A judgment is entered against a debitor who owns 3 properties. The judgment is a lien against all 3 properties. A document recorded to give notice of an obtained right and usual does not include the terms of the option is memorandum of option. Which of the following dimensions contains the largest area? Would be C, 2 mile squares. An estoppel certificate is normally used when a loan is assigned. Which of the following statements is correct in relation to an exclusive right to sell listing? Would be C. Either party has the right to terminate an employee agreement, but there may be consequences. A designated broker may not pay a team that is formed as an LLC. The cases Kello versus New London and Bailey versus City of Mesa dealt with eminent domain. The central air conditioning until no. The central air conditioning unit breaks down in an apartment building during a heat wave. According to the Residential Landlord and Tenant Act, the tenants may immediately give the landlord a 5-day notice to repair it. A loan of $28,000 is made at 10% interest for 15 months. What is the total amount owed when the loan is due? It would be C, $31,000 and $500. A property in a 90-unit plan unit development is being sold. All of the following items must be disclosed to the buyer except a copy of the homeowner's associate insurance policy for the common areas, which is the first step in the foreclosure of a tax lien. Notice is sent to the property owner. In Arizona, a deed of trust is used to secure the lender's interests. A home is wired for 60 amp electrical service but building code requires 100 amp service. This is a form of functional obsolescence. If I said that right. The seller informs the listing agent that they are in bankruptcy and the sale of the house must be approved by the bankruptcy court. The seller doesn't want the agency to disclose the bankruptcy. The agency must inform the seller to disclose the bankruptcy because the sale of the house is contingent of court approval. Q grants are permission to build a porch which encroaches on Q's property or has received a easement. Distributed ledger technology that uses a distributed, decentralized, shared, and replicated ledger and on which the data on the ledgers is protected with cryptography is immutated and outdated and provides an uncensored truth is a blockchain. A purchaser buys a lot from a subdivider prior to receiving the public report. Which of the following statements is incorrect? It would be C. The sale is revoked and the purchaser loses his deposit. V bought and occupied a home in Arizona. 2 months later, V borrowed $50,000 and gave the lender a note and trust deed secured with the home. V defaulted the loan and the lender began a foreclosure action. The home the homestead exemption would have no effect on the foreclosure. If a rural subdivision lost the use of the fire department, it would suffer from economic obsolescence. The decision in the case of State Bar of Arizona versus Arizona Land Title and Trust Company started real estate brokerage were not legally able to write contracts. A buyer qualifies for a VA loan and receives a certificate of eligibility with full entitlement. What does this mean for the buyer? Would be C. The buyer can get a loan from any VA lender. If a third party is involved in a transaction, what duties does the broker have to that party? C. Disclosure of any known defects. A seller is charged with $300,000 and $800,000 in prorated taxes on a closing statement because taxes become a lien on January 1st but are not yet payable. A buyer has a right to rescind in all of the following purchases except an improved lot in a subdivision if the buyer has received a public report. A brokerage companies that are LLCs may be managers managed or member managed. The Arizona Residential Landlord and Tenant Act regulates one unit in a fourplex. If a public report would be required on all of the following properties except commercial lots. The designated broker of an LLC must be a member if the LLC is member managed. The statute of frauds sets forth the requirement that listing must be in writing to be enforceable. When evaluating a property for the purposes of taking a listing, which of the following should not be included? D. Local places of worship. The Mamas versus Oro Valley Townhouse case found that misrepresentation can occur when a license discovers an error and remains silent. An estate is terminated and will not revert to the grantor. The party who will receive the property is called the remainder. A person who solicits a reservation for residential dwellings must be licensed if the occupancy will be greater than 31 days. Which of the following statements is true? The longer the loan, the lower the total monthly payment. Which of the following complaints against a license would the Arizona Department of Real Estate investigate? Trust account complaints. Which way of terminating an agency may give the principal the right to sue the broker for damage? Rescission by the broker. Which of the following services could a licensed who is representing a buyer provide to the buyer when negotiating to buy a property listed by another licensed working in a branch office of the same brokerage firm? Obtaining a disclosure statement from the seller regarding structural defects. The statute of frauds sets forth the requirement that to be enforceable in a deed must be in writing. A retail business sees a sharp decline in their profits due to a newly constructed freeway on-ramp that bypasses the property. This is an example of incurable external obsolescence. The amount of cash that a buyer must bring to closing will appear on the settlement statement as the buyer's charges minus the buyer's credits, which might be a misrepresentation in an ad. D. Providing a school district map that is incorrect. In Arizona, an unaccepted offer to purchase must be kept for 1 year from the date of rejection. The central air conditioning unit breaks down in an apartment building during a heat wave. According to the residential landlord and tenant act, the tenants may immediately give the landlord a 5-day notice to repair it. A home is wired for 60 amp electrical service, but building's code requires 100 amp service. This is a form of functional An estoppel certification is normally used when a loan is assigned. If a third party is involved in a transaction, what duties does the broker have to that party? Disclosure of any known defects. Brokerage companies that are LLCs may be manager managed or member managed. Number 34, which is the first step in the foreclosure of a tax lien. Notice is sent to the property owner. A public report would be required on all of the following properties except commercial lots. In order to obtain a prospective assessment, there must be adverse use. The decision in the case of State Bar of Arizona versus Arizona Land Title and Trust Company stated real estate brokerage were not legally able to write contracts. In advertising real estate, an active licensed who markets her own house for sale must include the words owner agent in any ad. A purchase agreement uses a standard clause that states this contract cannot be altered, amended, changed, modified, revised, or terminated without written specific consent of both the buyer and seller. To make a change to this purchase agreement, the buyer and seller can communicate the changes via email. The cases: Kello versus New London and Bailey versus City of Mesa dealt with eminent domain, a clause that allows lenders to take over collection of rents when a borrower is in default is a assignment of rents clause. Which of the following protects the lender in the event of a foreclosure? Would be B, mortgage insurance. In the case Verma versus Sutara, the court decided that failure of the seller to give the buyer an affidavit of closure, which is B, allows the buyer to cancel the purchase prior to closing. A piece of property sells for $125 an acre and the sale price is $185,000. What is the size of the property? It would be B, 1,480 acres. A document recorded to give notice of an opportunity's rights and usually does not include the terms of the option is a memorandum of option. Is C. In a purchase contract, a buyer has 45 days to conduct environmental research on a property. This is referred to as B, due diligence. Long-term capital gain treatment applies if the property has been held more than 12 months. An active management area is an area in which excessive overdraft is occurring.